Welcome to the Rusted Garden Homestead. Today I want to talk to you about how to plant a fruit tree into your garden. I highly recommend fruit trees. I think every garden should have several of them. I'm going to talk about where to place it, strategy behind there, and also talk about selecting the right tree. So this is a peach tree. It's going to get 12 to 15 feet tall. When I learn how to prune, I will do some videos on it, but I selectively prune now to kind of manage the size and all that, but I'm still learning the basics. This is a July Prince. It's self-pollinating, so you want to make sure that when you're selecting a tree, read the tag. It'll tell you if it's self-pollinating or not. If not, you're going to need two varieties of a peach tree in this case so that they cross-pollinate and you get a better production of fruit. This tree is 3 to 4 years old. It's coming in a container. That's what I recommend. I don't recommend buying bare rootstock or 1 year or 2 year old trees. They're very small. I'm a bit older. I don't want to be waiting around 5 years, 6 years for my tree to fruit. I recommend getting this. This was actually picked up maybe at Home Depot or Lowe's. They're a little bit expensive. They're $59, somewhere around there, but it's really worth it. This tree is going to fruit this year. However, because it's just getting into the ground the first time, it doesn't really have a root system set up to manage the growth of all the fruit, take care of the tree for the winter, give it the nutrients it needs to store up for the winter. So you really have to take at least a half, if not 2/3 of the fruit off of this tree the first year so that the root system establishes and the tree can take care of fruit and can take care of itself. I learned that the hard way. So this is the July Prince. It is in the corner of my bed that is outside, so let me step back a little bit. My sun, it's 9 o'clock now, rises over on this side, tracks into the south. The southern sun is right there. The shadow is going to be casted towards me onto grass, and then it keeps going around here to the west. So this bed right here, my no-dig bed, is not going to be impacted by the tree. So you want to kind of take that into account, is when your tree gets to 12 feet, 15 feet tall, where's the shade going to cast? This one is going to fall into the grass, which is perfectly fine. I also decided to put a tree out here. Though I love this bed, it's hard to see the black string or the black polycord that's through there, and it kind of blends into the background. I wanted something else to kind of distract from the garden that's right here, so that you're going to see all the beautiful plants when they're coming, less of the hardware, and then you'll have a tree right there. So I like using trees as a strategy to kind of design the look of my garden, and I thought a self-pollinating peach tree would look beautiful right there, especially when it gets to be 12 to 15 feet tall. It will kind of just blend the edges, I think, the harsh edges of this garden into something soft and something nice to look at. Hopefully that made sense. So when you go to plant, and I'll show you the basics, but you're going to hear this all the time, dig the hole twice as wide as the container. Well, nobody really knows what that is, so you just have to use a little bit of logic. So it's one container, and then you would be like another container. That's going to be twice as wide. Well, in order to do that, you want to come out about 2 or 3 inches from the side, dig the hole that way. So it's 2 inches all the way around the circle basically, and just dig down. You want to make sure you plant the tree level to what's in the pot. You don't want to go up too high. That could kill off the tree. But more importantly, with a lot of fruit trees, they graft the trunk onto rootstock, and you don't want to bring the soil above where the trees are grafted together. If you do that, roots are going to come out of the fruit tree, and it's really going to start using those roots to take care of the tree. And sometimes when you're buying dwarf or semi-dwarf plants, that's controlled by the rootstock. So if you bring the soil up too high, you think you have a dwarf tree, roots come out, the roots of the original graft, the trunk, the tree that produces the fruit, take over, and then that tree can become large. Hopefully I got that right, but that's my understanding. Was a mouthful to say. Let's get to digging and setting up. The other thing you'll hear too is they say don't fertilize the tree. You don't want it to keep its roots contained and live off the food that you give it. That just makes no sense. This tree, once in the ground, once watered, once fed, will start sending roots out all over. That's what nature does, and it will look to establish a great root system, will give you a beautiful tree, and feeding the tree doesn't inhibit that when you first plant it. The hole is dug, took about 10 minutes. Now this fruit tree again is about 3 or 4 years old. It's from Home Depot or Lowe's. You can get them at Costco sometimes. They're cheaper, but this was about 60 bucks. They're going to be somewhere between 40 and $65. It's a bit expensive, but it's worth it to me to buy a tree that's 3 or 4 years old. You're going to get fruit much sooner to your garden, and in my case, I don't want to wait around for it. So the hole is about twice the size of the container. Once you get down to the bottom, loosen that up nicely. If you can get down to 6 inches or so, that's perfect. I'm not going to put any fertilizer in here. My ground around here is fertile enough. I might water it in with some fish emulsion, just give it some nitrogen. But the whole key when you put in a new tree is just keep it watered. Let the roots get the water they need from you, and then they will take care of the rest really and establish nicely. So again, the tree can be kind of expensive. However, one way to save money is I took all the soil out of here, put it into the cart. I will be blending this with some peat moss, some compost, and filling raised beds. So rather than having to buy bagged soil for my raised beds and even my containers, I make my own, and that will save you a lot of money. That's easily $15 or $20 worth of soil that you would have to buy in a bag. And even though it's clay, it's full of nutrients. Once it's blended to a 50-50 earth, the other 50 being peat moss or a combination of 25% peat or cocoa coir and some of my leaf mold and compost, this is going to be beautiful stuff. So just kind of think of strategies on how you can save money in the garden in case you want to buy something that's more expensive like this peach tree. Now usually the root ball pops out of the container, but sometimes you have to cut down the side. Once I get that out, I'm going to gently loosen the roots that are in there so that they start kind of getting angled outward, loosen the bottom, and I'm just going to drop it into the hole. Once you have it in, and again, it's level to the ground, and you can see right there where it bumps out, that's where the trunk usually gets grafted on to the rootstock. You don't want to fill above that line. But that's pretty, much level. I might drop it a little bit. But at this point, you want to look at the tree, look at where the strength is. And the strength really is right on those branches right there. Where do I want them to grow? I don't want them coming out this way. I kind of want them to go out to that side, so I'm going to move the tree around. So when you're placing it, you want to make sure that it's mostly straight going upward, and also position it so that the stronger branches that you're going to keep will be growing into the direction that you want them to grow. And I want this tree to soften up this whole space right here, so I'm going to just move it a little bit, and then you just drop soil in around the side. It's nothing fancy. As you're dropping the soil in, if you flip your shovel over, you can kind of press in the soil. You want it to be nice and firm. You don't want this tree to fall over because the soil is too soft, so you can just kind of pack the soil in there. The roots will be fine, and then just water it in really well. Let me get this finished. I think we talked enough about it, and I'll just show you its final place in my garden. Wanted to include mulching, so you can see that I took the grass out kind of shallow, and even if there isn't a graft from trunk to rootstock, you don't want to bring mulch up really high, so you want to keep the original height of the soil that's in the container, along the surface, maybe an inch of mulch on top of there. So mulch will go right across here. This will stay nice and moist. I will water it in. All the extra earth, that's perfect if you have large metal raised beds, as I just got, that are 17 inches, 32 inches tall. That's great stuff to put in the bottom of a raised bed. So I'll mulch this in. I think it looks pretty good. Let me do that. My peach tree is in. You may have to move it around a little bit over the next couple of weeks just to adjust it. That's pretty easy to do because the soil is still soft. You can see the main branches are coming over there. These containers cost several bucks. I just wanted to show you what I do with it, or talk to you about it. I cut out half the bottom, sink it halfway into the earth. I have that in my garden. If you want to subscribe, I'll be showing you my sunken container garden. But then I would put in good soil in there, 2 pepper plants into that little space. Wonderful production, and it's just a great way to repurpose that container. This is just basic fencing. You can get anything that looks like that. The deer will come right up to this and they will chew down all the new growth, so you do want to protect it for at least a year until the tree gets taller. the branches get a little less tender. They tend to leave it alone. But that is my July Prince peach tree, and I think it's going to look beautiful right there, softening this garden, kind of breaking up the space. Thanks for watching. Please check out my seed shop at therustedgarden.com, and don't be afraid to add some fruit trees to your garden and landscape.